So one of the things we've been testing on our downhill bikes this off-season is this floating brake arm. This is a project that I've been working on with Faction Bike Studio. They sponsor Frameworks project and give me some engineering hours in trade for promoting their business. They're a B2B engineering company that specializes in bikes. So I had the idea to try different anti-rise values in my frame and isolate only that one change at a time. So floating brake arms have been something that have been around for quite a while. You notice them from back in the early 2000s, a lot of brands running those on 26-inch bikes with higher main pivots and higher instance centers to try to get their braking to be more active. On our bike, we run a horse link design, and that's known to be a good design for active braking. Currently, our frames sit around 72% consistently through the travel with a 615 center of gravity. It's important to know that the anti-rise is driven off the rider's center of gravity, which is not only changing from rider to rider, but changing as that rider is riding the trail. Generally speaking, lower anti-rise makes the suspension feel more active and supple while you're under braking, and higher anti-rise loads the spring and makes the bike feel stiffer. The pros and cons are that while you have active suspension, you're higher in the travel, you feel like your feet are higher off the ground, and no matter what, when you're braking hard, you're usually using both brakes and your fork is diving. So you feel as though you're getting thrown forward when the anti-rise is lower because the bike is higher in the geo. When you have higher anti-rise, the bike squats more, which is what makes that spring feel stiff, but it also puts you in a more defensive position for braking, with your feet lower and, relatively speaking, the bike squatting front to rear more evenly than when it's with a lower anti-rise. So what's cool about this floating brake arm is it's adjustable and it's completely independent of the linkage that the shock's on. The shock's on a 4-bar linkage, and this floating brake arm is actually a 6-bar linkage that is mounted with a clamp to my seat tube. It has 4 positions that we've measured that I can change within about 2 minutes. So run to run, I can leave everything else on the bike, instance center of the shock, the same, but change the instance center that the floating brake arm is mounted to get a different anti-rise value. With a round seat tube, I can also slide that clamp up and down and pretty much get infinite anti-rise values. I haven't measured out each one, but we know exactly where to clamp it to get the 4 that we have measured, and they're in noticeable jumps. We've got one at 50%, one at 70%, which is around what the bike is. We wanted to make the baseline what the bike is without the arm, so when we add all this weight to it and complication, we know we're testing apples to apples with that as a benchmark. Then we have one at around 90% and one at 110. The one at 110 is, and we don't know exactly what their numbers are, but what Angel felt the Commencal V5 was, he felt like that bike was really good under braking, even though it has quite a high anti-rise. So we wanted to compare to that. That was a bike that he really liked, and we wanted to try to get some of those qualities out of it and see if we can incorporate that into our bike. The goal of this is just to test. It's not to race with the floating brake arm, but just to isolate one variable at a time, see if we can learn that a different anti-rise value works better with our frame, and then in the future, we can move some of the pivot points around on our 4-bar linkage that the shock's on to have both a different anti-rise value and the current shock characteristics that we're looking for. My feeling so far is, honestly, the way that we designed the bike was intentional with around 70-75% anti-rise, and I really like it where it is. I can see some benefit to going higher, and I'd say the better rider you are, the better you are at braking, the higher anti-rise you'd probably want. If you're braking very intentionally, late, and hard with both brakes, I can see why you'd want the bike to squat, even though it loads the spring and feels stiff. The position is definitely more confidence-inspiring when you need to brake hard and late. If you drag your brake a lot, like me, pretty bad at that, been bad at that my whole career, you want it lower because you want the bike to be active while you're dragging your rear brake. I guess on steeper tracks as well, you'd want it a bit higher, and on flatter tracks, lower is pretty good. I noticed this weekend at Rock Creek, there's some really choppy ruts that you have to brake through, and they're not that steep, and the whole bike feels pretty locked out when you're doing that. Suspension's not tracking as well. But last weekend at Windrock, when there were some steeper sections while you're braking, it's nice to be in that more confidence-inspiring geometry position. So yeah, we'll keep riding this. We'll see if we can figure out a new setting that we like and incorporate that into our future bikes. We're always trying to find the best setup we can. I don't think there's any magic secrets out there. It's just finding the right balance of everything and the right recipe. And as riders adapt, as tracks evolve, we can maybe change our recipe a little bit. So that's what we're going with this. Thanks to Faction for making this thing. It was my idea, but they completely designed it and did all the engineering. Adam Proces machined it at his place in Colorado. He's really been helping us out with some one-off machining. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for all the bike nerds being interested in our project.